These are my 2025 MLB predictions for standings, awards, and playoffs. We got a bunch of new division winners this year, so let's start off with the AL East. We got Tampa Bay Rays at number 5. They're kind of an unpredictable team. They could have a really good season, or they also could have just a fine season. I do like that Drew Rasmussen and Shane McClanahan are coming back. Their lineup's fine, nothing crazy, but I think this is a good spot for them. At number 4, we got the Toronto Blue Jays, who had a really good offseason. They definitely improved, but I still think they need one more bat. I'm excited to see what Bichette does this year, and I think Anthony Santander signing was pretty good too. Also, side note, a bunch of people called me biased for choosing the Jays to sign Hoffman and Profar, and the Jays did better than Profar. They got Santander, so I'm just saying. Number 3, we got the Baltimore Orioles, who had a pretty disappointing offseason. They lost Burns and they lost Anthony Santander, which is a pretty big blow. They definitely need an ace, but maybe Grayson Rodriguez steps up and is the guy this year. But their lineup is pretty good, and I could see them having another good year. And winning the AL East, we got the New York Yankees. Now, the Garrett Cole situation is a little tricky. I don't know how long he's going to be out for as of now. Depending how long Garrett Cole's out is going to impact the season for sure. Stanton's out. I think their lineup's still fine. Cody Bellinger, I think, is a good fit. And the top half of their rotation is good too. Coming in second place in the AL East, we got the Boston Red Sox, who had a great offseason, adding in some big names like Crochet and Bregman and Walker Buehler. Their lineup is really good. The rotation has some guys on prove-it-year contracts, like Giolito and Walker Buehler, but I expect them to be a good team this year and better than last year. For the AL Central in 5th place, we got the Chicago White Sox. They're a bad team. They did nothing. Not much to look forward to. Luis Robert, he could have a good season, I think. But at number 4, we got the Minnesota Twins, who had a pretty rough offseason. I think their owners are kind of trying to tank to sell the team, which I don't really understand. You think you'd want to make your team better to sell the team, but I do actually really like their starting pitching rotation with Pablo Lopez, Ober, Joe Ryan, and Simeon Woods Richardson. And then they got some good guys in their lineup, but also some injury concerns. At number 3 in the AL Central, we got the Tigers. They didn't really lose anyone notable this offseason, and they got a good 1-2-3 in the rotation with Skubal, Jack Flaherty, and Reese Olson. And then some good young guys in their lineup who can hit pretty well, like Riley Green and Kerry Carpenter. Hey, I'm from the future, and this is a banana. I'm going to do a quick switcheroo between the Twins and the Tigers because last year the Twins had quite a few injury problems. That definitely does play a factor, but I think the Twins right now are a better team on paper than the Tigers, and I really like the rotation better. And winning the AL Central, I got the Kansas City Royals. I really like this team. I like that they added Carlos Estevez. I would have rather them have Brady Singer than Jonathan India, but Jonathan India is a good addition too. And the rotation's still good with Cole Ragans, who's a sneaky Cy Young pick, and Seth Lugo, who just finished second in the Cy Young. And coming in second place in the AL Central, we got the Cleveland Guardians. They lost a few guys this offseason, but their rotation's still solid with Shane Bieber coming back, Tanner Bybee, and Luis Ortiz. Bullpen is completely nasty. Their lineup has a few holes in it, but Jose Ramirez is good. Carlos Santana is good, but he's also getting pretty old. John Means is also an interesting signing too, I gotta say. For the AL West in 5th place, we got the Los Angeles Angels, who had a pretty decent offseason actually. They got Kikuchi, Soler, and Kenley Jansen, and a bunch of other guys, but I don't think it's enough for them to make the playoffs this year. Their lineup has some good young guys who I actually like Ohapi and Zach Neto. Besides Kikuchi, their rotation has quite a few question marks, so I don't see them getting much higher than this. Number 4, we got the Oakland Athletics, who had a way better offseason than pretty much anybody expected. Severino was a bit of an overpay, but it was worth it for them to get somebody. And I like the additions of Jose Leclerc and Jeffrey Springs. In my hot takes video, I said they could make a wild card push, but in reality, probably not there quite yet. But I do like JJ Bleday and Brent Rooker and Shea Langeliers. Number 3, we got the Texas Rangers, where it's kind of a prove-it year for them to see how good they really are. Won the World Series in 2023, but then missed it in 2024. So we'll see if that was just them getting hot at the right time or what it was. Made some good moves this offseason. I hope Jacob deGrom can stay healthy because he's one of the best pitchers in the league. And the lineup has some pretty good pieces in it still. Winning the AL West, we got the Houston Astros. They switched things up a lot this offseason. And honestly, they did get worse, but I still think they're the best team in this division. They lost Bregman, they lost Tucker, lost Verlander, Kikuchi, and Ryan Presley. Lineup still has some good parts like Altuve and Yordan Alvarez. and they got a good top half of the rotation. At number 2, we got the Seattle Mariners, who didn't do anything this offseason, but I just really like the rotation. Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, and George Kirby right now, who's injured, but their lineup definitely needs some work. For the American League Awards, I really like Bobby Witt and Gunnar Henderson, but I think I'm going to go with Vlad Guerrero Jr. just because this is his walk year, and I kind of could see him getting motivated to go off and go crazy. For Cy Young, let's go with Garrett Crochet. I think he's going to fit really well in a contending team on Boston. Rookie of the Year, I'm going to go with another Red Sox. Let's go with Roman Anthony, who's looked really good in the minors and spring training this year, I think. Comeback Player of the Year, let's go with Bo Bichette. I expect him to completely bounce back this year and have a great year. NL East, in 5th place, we got the Miami Marlins, who is a really bad team. 100 losses last year, and they might have even got worse this year. It's good that Sandy Alcantara is coming back, but I could also see him getting traded this year at the deadline. 4th place, Washington Nationals, who did a couple offseason moves this year, but I kind of was hoping they would do a bit more to make a push to contend maybe. But they still have a fun young lineup with CJ Abrams and James Wood. The rotation has a couple question marks in it, so I wouldn't put them higher than this yet. Number 3, we got the Philadelphia Phillies, and their core is definitely getting a little bit older at this point, and the window might be starting to close. They could still all have a good season, obviously, but this past offseason, they lost a few key bullpen pieces, but they did add a few decent pieces also. Rotation's pretty good and built well for the playoffs with Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, Nola, Ranger Suarez, and Jesus Luzardo. The lineup's also really good with Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Alec Boehm, Schwarber, Castellanos, Stott. Now, number 1 and 2 for the NL East was pretty difficult. It's tough to rank them, but for winning the NL East, number 1, I'm going to go with the New York Mets. Last year, they were tied with the Atlanta Braves, but the Mets actually got better this past offseason. They got a great 1 through 3 in their lineup with Lindor, Pete Alonso, and Juan Soto. The rotation's good. Sean Manaea is injured right now, but Senga's going to be coming back, and it seems like Clay Holmes is going to be a starting pitcher this year. My only critique of them this offseason is that they didn't really get an ace pitcher, which I think was needed for them. Number 2 in the NL East, we got the Atlanta Braves, who definitely did downgrade this offseason. Lost Max Fried, Jorge Soler, AJ Minter, and a bunch of other guys. They did get worse this offseason, but at the same time, I think they will have a better season this year, as I think they're going to improve internally just because they had a bunch of guys with injuries and down seasons last year. Their lineup is still really nasty with Profar, Riley, Matt Olson, Ozuna, and Elbies. Acuna is starting the year on the injured list. Hopefully he can stay healthy. And they got a solid rotation with Chris Sale coming off a Cy Young season, and then Spencer Strider is supposed to be returning at some point. NL Central in 5th place, I got the Pittsburgh Pirates. I do like this team. They made a few moves this offseason, just like Brian Hayes. He really needs to step it up. The rotation is pretty solid with Paul Skeens, Keller, and Jared Jones, but I don't think they're going to go too much higher than this. 4th place, we got the St. Louis Cardinals. Didn't really do much this offseason. They lost Paul Goldschmidt, and they weren't able to trade Arenado. The lineup has some decent young guys in there who have good potential. The rotation besides Sonny Gray and Eric Fed, it's a little sketchy. Cincinnati Reds, first of all, I really like their offseason they had. I really like the Brady Singer move, and then they replaced Jonathan India with Gavin Lux. I like that they added Taylor Rogers, and their lineup, they got Matt McLean coming back, and they got a bunch of other good guys in their lineup. And the rotation, I actually really like. Hunter Green, he's a beast. Brady Singer, Nick Martinez, and Nick Lodolo. Now, for first place in the NL Central, this might have been the hardest division to choose a winner for, but I am going to go with the Chicago Cubs. They lost Bellinger, but they got better by adding Kyle Tucker instead. Made some other solid moves. I do like their lineup. Ian Happ, Kyle Tucker, Suzuki, Michael Busch, and Swanson. Rotation's pretty good too with Shota Imanaga, Jameson Taillon, and Justin Steele. Second place in the NL Central, we got the Brewers. They had another bad offseason. Kind of seems like they're tanking, but they also kind of seemed to be doing that a little bit last year, but this year was pretty rough offseason, losing Adames and Devin Williams. They did add Nestor Cortez and Jose Quintana. Their lineup, to be fair, is still pretty decent, with Terang, Churio, and Yelich and Contreras. Rotation, they got Peralta, Cortez, Myers, and Savali, and Woodruff's supposed to be coming back at some point, so maybe they'll do better than this. I don't know where to put them. They're a little bit of a tough team to rank. 5th place in the NL West, we got the Colorado Rockies. Another bad offseason for them. Nothing notable. Some guys to look forward to, though. Maybe like Doyle, Ezekiel Tovar, and Ryan McMahon. We'll see if Nolan Jones bounces back, but the rotation's pretty bad. Germain Marquez is probably the ace, but probably should have traded him like a few years ago when there's more value. Now, things are getting a little more tough to rank at this point in the division, but number 4, I got the San Francisco Giants. They did lose quite a bit of guys this offseason, like Blake Snell, Michael Conforto, Taylor Rogers. Their lineup, I do actually really like Matt Chapman, Willie Adames, Elliot Ramos, or I really like some of the pieces in their lineup. Top of the rotation's good. Logan Webb, Verlander, and Robbie Ray. Yeah, I'm definitely curious to see how they do this year. Number 3, we got the San Diego Padres. Pretty rough offseason for them, especially compared to the last 2 years. They made quite a bit of good moves in the offseason, but they lost Tanner Scott, lost Profar, and lost some other guys. Rotation's still solid even without Joe Musgrove. They got Cease, King, Darvish, and now Nick Pivetta. Lineup also has some pretty good pieces too, like Manny Machado, Tatis, and Jackson Merrill. And winning the AL West, we got the Arizona Diamondbacks. They had a I'm joking. Obviously, we got the Dodgers winning the NL West. I mean, who didn't they get this offseason? Not including guys they re-signed. They got Blake Snell, Sasaki, Tanner Scott, Hyun-Sung Kim, not to be confused with Ha-Sung Kim, Michael Conforto. Doesn't matter who they lost. Their lineup's disgusting with Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez. And rotation, they got like 10 pitchers with like Blake Snell, Glasnow, Yamamoto, Sasaki. And coming in second place, we got the Arizona Diamondbacks. Overall, they got better this offseason. Corbin Burns was a surprise move. And then the rotation, they got Zach Gallen still and Merrill Kelly. Lineup, they got some good pieces still, like Corbin Carroll, Marte, Gurriel Jr., Naylor now, and Suarez. For NL awards, for MVP, I know it's really basic, but I don't know how you're going to pick against Shohei Ohtani, especially if he's going to pitch this year, even if it's not a lot. NL Cy Young, I'll go with Paul Skeens. Crazy rookie season last year. Rookie of the year, I'm going to go with Roki Sasaki. And comeback player of the year, I'm going to go with Spencer Strider. For the playoffs for the American League, I got the Yankees 1, then the Royals, then the Astros, then the Red Sox, then the Orioles, then the Guardians. For the NL, I got the Dodgers, Mets, Cubs, Braves, Phillies, and Diamondbacks. So in the American League, I got the number 4 Red Sox playing against the number 5 Orioles, and I got the Red Sox moving on. Next, I got the number 3 Astros versus the number 6 Guardians, and I learned, with playoffs especially, you kind of just got to go off vibes. So I'm going to choose the Guardians to move on. For the NL, I got the number 4 Braves against the number 5 Phillies, and I'm going to have the Phillies move on. I think they're really built for the playoffs. And next, I got the number 3 Cubs versus the number 6 Diamondbacks, and I'm going to have the Diamondbacks move on. For the ALDS, we got the number 1 Yankees versus the number 4 Red Sox, and I'm going to have the Red Sox move on here. I think it would be a close series, but if they got some injuries, things could be sketchy for the Yankees. Then we got the number 2 Royals versus the number 6 Guardians, and I really like the Royals, but I don't know. I'm just going to go with the Guardians. We'll see what happens. For the NLDS, we got the number 1 Dodgers versus the number 5 Phillies, and it's pretty hard to pick against the Dodgers here. Anything can happen in the playoffs, but it's the Dodgers, and they're kind of insane. Next, we got the number 2 Mets versus the number 6 Diamondbacks, and I think this is where the Diamondbacks run ends here. For the ALCS, we got the number 4 Red Sox versus the number 6 Guardians, and I like a bit of an underdog story here, so I'm going to go with the Guardians to move on to the World Series. For the NLCS, we got the number 1 Dodgers versus the number 2 New York Mets, 2 of the best teams in the league, but I'm going to have the Dodgers move on. Before we get to the World Series, I'm trying to hit 5,000 subscribers by opening day, so we're not too far away. If you want to subscribe, that'd be pretty cool. So Guardians versus Dodgers, this would be an interesting matchup for sure, but winning the 2025 World Series, we have the Los Angeles Dodgers. I know it's a really boring prediction, but it's hard to pick against them. If this was a hot takes video, I would predict them to three-peat. But if you want to see 5 hot takes for 2025, tap here. Shoot, boys, that's a big hill. Did anyone bring any snacks?